Hello everybody and welcome back to another Kings of War battle report. I'm Visibly Riley, and today we have Salamanders versus Abyssal Dwarves. This battle was fought at 2250 points, and the scenario was Raze. Now, before I get into it, this is like the fourth time I've had to re-record this broadcast just because OBS was messing up, so it might go a little fast at times, and I might be a little more agitated than normal, a little bit more Visibly Riley. So yeah, let's walk through the terrain. So in the bottom left-hand corner, let's start there. We have our one and only piece of height flat terrain, which is this water feature. And then to the north of that, we have our one and only height 4 obstacle. And then to the north of that, we've got our first height 1 obstacle. And actually, this house here is impassable. The obstacles are the walls. So let's work our way over here to the east. We have our first height 2 forest, and then working our way down a little bit, we have a height 2 hill. Working our way back up, another height 2 hill. And then again to the east, we've got our second height 1 obstacle. Down to the south, we have a height 2 or height 6 forest. The forests are height 6. And then working our way back west, we have our final piece of terrain, which is our final height 1 obstacle. So pretty standard terrain layout. I actually set this up before my opponent arrived because, yeah, this was a pretty late game, as at least late for people that work full time. So yeah, starting a game after 10 and I did make a small mistake, which was I placed this hill on the top slightly into this deployment zone, and yeah, just put a little mortar there, put a little friendly cloud. So yeah, unfortunate, but it happens. As for the scenario itself, let's talk about it. So first off, we draw a center line. Very well, good job, Riley. 10 out of 10 art. Then we've got an objective on the center line, and at the end of the game, if you control that objective, which is you have the highest unit strength within 6 inches, 3 inches, something like that, you control the objective and you get 1 victory point. Now the next part is that you have 3 objectives for each player deployed on the opponent's side. Now my objectives might look like they were thrown on the table randomly, and that is because they were. So I actually just threw them at the table as my opponent wanted to play an objective-based game, and I was getting a little tired, and honestly I was getting a little sick. So I just placed them wherever. It doesn't really matter to me for an army that I don't know how to play and it's my first go. It doesn't matter. But scenarios are always worth playing, so definitely worth it there. So if we start on the top left, you can see my first objective. And then all the way over here, slightly off screen, is my second objective. And then we go all the way over here to the right again, and we've got my third objective. Now the objectives at the end of any phase while you control it, so again you're within 3 inches with the highest unit strength, you can burn it, which gets you 1 objective point. So you walk over there, you light it on fire, you gain an objective point. As for my opponent's points, if we go from the last one I pointed at and we work our way back down to the south, we have his first. And then again over here to the right, slightly off the screen, is his second. And then all the way over here in the middle of my army is the third. So again, he's trying to burn his, I'm trying to burn mine, and we're trying to dominate the center. So a possible 4 points if you do everything perfectly, and that's about it. So moving forward, this is the end of deployment, and I just took this picture because I wanted to talk a little bit about why I'm doing Salamanders. Part of it is because I have several players in my area, 3 actually, which is quite a bit, as Kings of War is not a huge game, and specifically in the Pacific Northwest and Seattle, where I live, it's definitely not big. So 3 players playing Salamanders is a lot. And 2 of them are players that don't play that much, right? Or they're one of them is new to the game, and they just sort of wanted to know. They haven't really given the Clash of Kings 19 the look through yet to see what they want to do, and I thought I would just speed it along, as I do at least 1 game a week. So I thought I would do that, and secondly, I actually, as you saw in a recent battle report where I played Trident Realm, I got my fulfillment for the other side pledge from Weird Miniatures, which is a bunch of fish people. And I was like, oh great, I can play Trident Realm. But then two other people I know that I play quite consistently, one actually being pictured right here, another one I'm borrowing this army from, and I have a third one that you've actually seen me play on the channel before. So all three of them had Trident Realm, and I didn't want to rain on anyone's parade, especially as I run I quote run a YouTube channel, and it's a little boring just to see a lot of back-to-back mirror matches. So at least it is for me. So I decided against doing the Trident Realm, and I went, well, what could I use those models for besides the other side, which really isn't my cup of tea. So I went, well, I could run them as Night Stalkers, and I might still do that because I think that's fun, but Night Stalkers are a little difficult to build a list for. and they're not, Night Stalkers aren't bad. I just, I don't want to, I have a problem with just sitting down and doing one thing. So Night Stalkers kind of need that focus. So I thought I'd shelve that for now and bring down a Salamanders list, because Salamanders are, an oft-laughed at army, and I wanted to experience it for myself. So I came up with this list, and by that I mean I figured out the things I wanted, which is to say, I wanted to run at least 2 formations, as I think all 3 of them are great, but they're expensive, so 2 is good. And specifically, I like the Ancients and the Corsair one, because I've heard a lot of derision about the Ancients, and I think it's excellent. I don't understand it at all. It's kind of like an infantry Hell on Wheels instead of the cab version, and Hell on Wheels was excellent. So I'm into that, and I'm into the Corsair one because I love boomers. So make me new boomers, I'll take them. I went on to the Salamanders Facebook group and found that Jesse Cornwell, Ogre Guy himself, has decided to also run a very similar army. I didn't have a chance to check out his battle report, as I didn't really want to, but not anything against either of those guys. I just didn't have the time, working a lot last week, so I just couldn't sit down and do it. But I did read the threads that he was talking with the other Salamanders players, and I read their points and sort of crafted the list based off of that and my own experiences playing against Salamanders. That's what I came up with. So we'll go through the army. Over here, these blank bases, these are Ghost Corsairs. They might look like they're not here, but yeah. So as I said before, I borrowed this army. And my opponent went, well, I don't have Corsair models, but if you're okay with using skinks, we can do that. And I went, oh, great. But he forgot the skinks. So, it wouldn't be one of my battle reports if there wasn't something wrong with the models, which is just slightly unfortunate for this one because it's fully painted. But, yep, so I've got 3 troops of Corsairs and a Firebrand behind. So this is the new Corsair formation. And to discuss what it does, you have to bring the 3 troops and the Firebrand. They all gain +1 to their range attack profile, so the Firebrand goes to a 3+, the Corsairs go to a 4+, which, as a small aside, I think they should just have. I don't think that should be part of the formation. They should just have that. Then they all gain Elite, which is great, obviously. And then the troops of Corsairs all gain +1 to their route value. Now, it doesn't help their waiver, but that's also less of an issue because the Firebrand has a rule called Legendary Aura, which is all Corsair units within 6 inches are fearless. So these all just become -13s. And -13s, 10 attacks, they're 4+ to hit in melee, 4+ to hit in ranged, defense 4, and pierce 1, crush 1. That's just those are great units. So definitely worth taking. And, they kind of remind me of the Scurrier formations I was running before with the Ratkin and the Shadow formation. Granted, they don't have the range, but they do have the piercing, so I'm all for it. Great stuff. I love formations like this. Moving on to the meat of the list, the meat, the potatoes, the anvil, the hammer, the everything. It is Rhinosaurs. So these guys, oof, they are one of the few things in Salamanders that I go like, yeah, those are terrifying. They're basically like the Salamander version of Stampede. Granted, they're not Stampede, but they try. So I've got 2 hordes of those. The one on the right here has Pathfinder, and the one on the left has the Healing Brew, but don't really bother remembering that because I didn't for this game. So just strike that from your memory. I played 25 points down. Ooh. So right behind them is a Battle Captain on a Kaizenor. I think that's what it's called. He's mounted, right? And then to the left of him, you see the beginning of the Ancients formation, and a Clan Lord that is also mounted up. So yeah, to talk about the Ancients formation for a second here, you have to bring 2 regiments of Ancients and a Clan Lord. The Clan Lord gains Rally 1 and Fearless, so he's a dash 15. And whenever I see Rally 1 on a hero, I go, ooh, that's a place for Banner the Griffin. So Rally 2, I love it. I've seen some talk about putting him on foot, giving him Firebolt, and then just running him around with the Ancients, but I prefer him to just hang out with the Rhinosaurs and give them +2. So yeah, that's what I did. And over here are the Ancients, and the Ancients in that formation gain Inspiring, which I think that's excellent. The Ancients gained Vicious in Clash of Kings 19 as well, which is okay. They're still, I don't know, they're kind of a nothing unit. They'd be good in a lot of armies, but in Salamanders, where they're kind of bereft of any really like flashy great units or coherent battle plan or anything like that, it's just a little meh. But I do like them with their Inspire because they are a great Andal unit. At Fearless 17, Death 5, they have Crush 1, obviously, but giving them Inspire is just another. It's probably the best rule for. I think Fearless is the best rule for tank units for Andals, and then the second best is Inspire. So they have those 2 going for them. Granted, they don't have Ensnare or Stealthy or Regen or any of those Iron Resolve, any of those other great rules. Phalanx, I guess now, but they still have the 2 best ones in my opinion. And then they also are pretty decent in combat because they've got 12 attacks on 3s with Crush 1, and now they have Vicious, so they can deal some damage. In the middle of them is a horde of Tyrants, which I've seen it run both ways in Salamander lists with Tyrants versus Fire Elementals, but considering how bad the Primes are, it's probably one or the other that you'll see in an army. Since I didn't want to run a bunch of Mage Priests to get the Surge up, and if I'm running Elementals, I want to run Surge. I instead opted for Tyrants, who also seem to be the more popular one. So some Tyrants there. Then we've got 1 Lochilodon and a second Lochilodon bringing up the left side. Oh, I actually forgot about this. So Lochilodon's over there. But right behind the Tyrants, just so you can see a little bit of the staff. That is a Mage Priest that I brought. I upgraded him to have Banechant 2 and Martyr's Prayer. So I've got that Elite Banechant 2, Fireball 10, and Martyr's Prayer 7. It seems like a solid army, but I've never piloted Salamanders before, so we'll see how it does. Over here, we've got the beginning of the Abyssal Dwarf army starting on the left flank as I see it. Back here is the Overlord on whatever the winged beast whatever they called the Lamassu in Kings of War, I can't remember. But that's the new Overlord, the one on the 75 by 75 base. I've heard people sort of poo-pooing on this guy. I don't get that. He's basically a chieftain on Chimera. Granted, he's a little bigger, a little bulkier, but I think he's got +2 on his breath attack. Just seems good, especially because he's in Abyssal Dwarfs. I think he's a great pick. Back here, or right in front of him, we've got our first troop of, what are these, mutated mastiffs with a throwing mastiff themselves, so the dogs that shoot bees from their mouths. Right here, we've got Bardoom! Or whatever he's called. I'm not sure what this character's called, but I know his special rule is called Bardoom, so we're going to call him Bardoom. And he's the beginning of his formation, also called Bardoom, where you bring him and 2 regiments of half-breeds, one of which is pictured here. They all gain Fury, and Bardoom gains Dread, so a pretty solid formation, and one that I've been looking at a lot while building Abyssal Dwarf lists recently. So, seems good. We have our first rocket launcher, so not a mortar, just a rocket. And again, the aforementioned half-breeds, first regiment of them. And to the right of that, we have the second regiment of half-breeds, again part of the Bardoom formation. Our second troop of mutated mastiffs, again with a throwing mastiff. Then we have 1 and 2 regiments of Immortal Guard, both of whom have throwing mastiffs. Behind them is he's off frame here, but is our first Iron Seer, Iron Priest, whatever they call the Stone Priest in Abyssal Dwarves, is right over there. Overseer? I'm gonna call him the Overseer. So he's right there. Then we've got a mortar on the hill because I'm dumb. There's a mortar there, second mortar. Our second Overseer. And then in front, 2 more regiments of Mortal Guard, both of whom have throwing mastiffs. And our last troop of mutated mastiffs, again with throwing mastiffs. So I think it's an interesting army. Definitely when I've been building my list, I've been focusing more on using blunderbusses. And my opponent mentioned actually that he was just trying to get away because he uses blunderbusses in most of his games. And I think that this is an interesting build. It's actually pretty similar to the Salamanders build I showed up with in terms of what it does and how. So yeah, interesting. And we move on to turn 1. So turn 1 goes to the dwarves, and they do what dwarves do, and they waddle. They waddle at me menacingly. So we've got the right waddlers over here, who just move forward a little bit. They're not very fast, but my opponent does manage to checkerboard them. So you know, it's just good practice to do stuff like this to make sure that you can't get combo charged, especially by enemies with larger units. As all my guys are on 25s, so they're all wider. So good plan. Over here on the left, we can see his half-breeds moving forward, and I'm not sure if it's interesting, but as a note of the differences between Abyssal Dwarves and Dwarves, you know, Rock Riders are an excellent unit, no one argues that, but what they're not is Heavy Cav, and Heavy Cav can do stuff like this, where they get some, you know, they can definitely do some decent damage, but they're mostly defense 5 and are speed 8, so they're outranging my units, and they can take any range threat, which I don't have, but they could, in theory, take, you know, a couple lightning bolt, like 5 or 6, and be fine with it. Especially if they have regen. It's the same way I like to use Abyssal Horsemen. I think that this is solid. Off on the left, you can't see it in this picture, but his Bardoom is right here. Bardoom. And he's got his dogs here, and then he has his dragon guy right there. And it's a classic, like, little bit of an onion, where the dogs can screen for his dragon, and then his Bardoom can just sort of like slip by, right? Dragon can fly over. And yeah, it's a pretty solid plan. All my Corsairs are over here. I forgot to Vanguard them because I'm really good. I'm not sure if forgot is correct. I probably just didn't know they had Vanguard. So yeah, he's able to abuse that and sit over there. In his shooting phase, his 2 Overseers can't do anything, but he does have the 2 mortars. One mortar goes into my Corsairs, does 1 wound. The other mortar goes into my, or not mortars, they're rockets. The other rocket goes into my Lachilodon, or one of my Lachilodons, and does 2 wounds. But no harm, no foul. No one's wavered, no one's broken. So turn 1 for the Salamanders. We do what Salamanders do, which is, I don't know. I'm not really a Salamanders general, so I just move forward with my lines. On the right here, I'm just keeping a battle line. I do think I made a slight mistake, which is the Tyrants should have better utilized their speed 6 and been the forward unit, just so I can project my threat better, but I didn't do that. They are checkerboarded a little bit, just to limit countercharges. In the middle, we can see my Rhinosaurs. This piece of nonsense is actually marking out how far these half-breeds can move. So the idea is that neither of my Rhinosaurs can be charged by this half-breed unit, right? That's the plan. This half-breed unit can charge either Rhinosaurs, but if it does, I can flank charge with the Rhinosaurs right back. So the very clever trap. I don't think anyone's ever thought of it before. So yeah, he can get into me and I will countercharge, and this is sort of my plan to deal with the fact that I'm slower than him. I don't think Rhinosaurs can take a double charge. At the time, I didn't know just how much damage these guys could do, but I knew that I couldn't take 2, especially as I was assuming that there was something like Abyssal Horsemen. So, yep, that's that. Over here with the Corsairs, you can see that Corsair unit, but there's a second one right there, and then my third one is forward. And the idea is that this third one, which I wrote a 6 on for some reason, so the third one here is just out of 12 inches for the dog, so I can't get charged. but I could be charged by the dragon. I can charge by Bardoom. The dragon can also reach these guys, but that's just because it was either that or not move, and I don't want to not move. So I move forward a little bit, and I'll just deal with the consequences. Hopefully this dragon will charge into me rather than mess around with my flank, because I don't know what I'd do against that. And here is the end of turn 1 total. My Lachilodons over here, they both shot into these Immortal Guard, 5 on 3s and 5 on 4s, and I missed all those shots, so it doesn't matter. And I take my Mage Priest and just hide him from the rocket over here, and Martyr's Prayer 2 wounds off the Lachilodon. So currently I have 2 wounds on a Mage Priest that I don't care about, and 1 wound on Corsairs, but otherwise I'm fine. And dominating that center. Moving forward to turn 2 for the Dwarves. This is a telling turn for the Dwarves, or it needs to be, because everything waddles into range. So first off, in the middle, we've got his Abyssal Half-Breeds falling for my my cunning ruse, but he goes into the middle unit. I probably would have gone into my left unit here, as it's less supported, but you know, I don't speak for my opponent. These little orange dice here are marking out how far this unit can go, because he definitely doesn't want his half-breeds to go in, bounce, and then get flanked by these ancients, countercharged here, and then have these guys go up here. That'd be a disaster. So, pretty good there. And again, he has me outranged because he's speed 8. But the rest of his army, all the dwarves, just move into range to shoot at my main combat blocks. So this unit of Immortal Guard and then this entire flank are all going to shoot into these ancients, just trying to wipe them out. That would be really bad, as I'm poorly positioned to deal with that if it happens. So again, poor positioning on my part. I tend to do this. While the other 2 units, so he's got the troop of dogs and the other regiment, can shoot into my tyrants just to start racking up the damage a little bit. So it's a little scary. Abyssal Dwarf shooting is always scary. Vicious or elite shooting is just scary stuff, even though they are exactly the same when it comes to damaging units. So moving forward, we see this combat, and let's go to the left. Oh, this is where it happens. So yeah, here's Bardoom going into some Corsairs. Should make short work of them, as he's got 8 attacks. 8 attacks on 3s and 2s with Vicious and Dread. So pretty bad for me. And then again, this dragon, who I believe has 12 attacks on 3s and 2s with Vicious. So yeah, I'm probably going to lose 2 units here, but anything can happen. And yeah, at the end of combat, in the middle, the half-breeds do 10 wounds to me, which at the time I was like, wow, that's some spike damage. But after thinking about it, assuming they have 18 attacks, which I think they do, and they hit on 3s, you know, that's 12 hits and then 9-ish wounds, but then Vicious kicks in, maybe 10 wounds. So it's not that bad. I mean, it's bad, but it's not that above or below average, I think. So yeah, 10 wounds, but thankfully I'm at dash 20 due to my Banner of the Griffin, so nothing happens. Over here, this is just embarrassing. So first we have Bardoom that goes in. He hits with 2 attacks and actually fails to wound me. Thankfully he has Vicious, so he does a mighty 2 wounds to my Corsairs and doesn't kill them. Then the dragon goes and has, you know, 5 hits. So yeah, it does 5 wounds to me and again doesn't break me. So this is really bad. The only thing I wish I'd done over here is I could have angled my Corsairs a little bit better, because Bardoom probably would have charged them anyway. And if I had angled like this, then when in the unlikely event that this happens and I can charge Bardoom, and then the unlikely event that I kill him, when I overrun, I can hit the flank of this dragon with all 3 Corsairs, which should be bad news bears for him. But anyway, I'll take luck when I can get it. And this is the end of turn 2 for the Abyssal Dwarves. You can see his shooting was kind of embarrassing. All these units, right, they end up doing 7 wounds to the ancients, which is that's just terrible. That's what, 24 shots on 4s and 5s, reroll wounds, and every wound propagates a new wound or a new hit. That's some bad dice. And then of course the mortar misses as well. But thankfully the dogs that were thrown at the tyrants just show that they needed a more valuable target and they do 6 wounds. So, you know, it's not all bad. I'm definitely wounded, especially in the center here. I've got a 7, a 6, and a 10. It's a lot of wounds. Oh, and a 2, I guess, back there. But we'll see what the Salamanders can do back with their turn. So, Salamander turn 2. First, in the top right, I take both of my my Horde of Tyrants and my Regiment of Ancients, and I charge into this Regiment of Immortal Guard. Now the idea, you can't quite see it here, but if I overrun here with the Ancients and I get at least a 3, I'm out of line of sight. And then the Tyrants, they don't really have to overrun, but they could to get out of line of sight. They plan to just turn around and face this way. Because in the center, I've overcommitted, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I plan to have my Ancients here facing this way, right? That way these units here have a choice to make about what they want to do. Do they want Tyrants or do they want Ancients, right? So I get to split his fire a little bit. And then if the Ancients don't overrun, I get flank charge, probably lose that unit, but they do block my Tyrants, and I just deal with the Immortal Guard over here later, who would then be stranded because they're only speed 4. And the Ancients here block these puppies, so it seems like a pretty good plan. I moved my Mage Priest here to be within 12 inches to get a Bane Chant because I really, really want this combat to work. I just sit with my Lucilodon. So this Lucilodon looks like it could charge into this unit of Immortal Guard, and in fact it can. But unfortunately, even if it does that, so Lucilodons are terrible in combat. They have no Pathfinder, they have no Nibble, they have no dice fixing, they hit on a 5+, and they only have 5 attacks. So if I'd gone in there, I've got 5 attacks on 6s, and when I back up my 1 inch, he can just corkscrew charge these guys. So, assuming he moves the dogs, but yeah, he can corkscrew charge my Ancients in the flank anyway. Who cares? So, yeah, I decide to just sit back and shoot. Maybe I can get a lucky 10 wounds. In the middle, I definitely overcommit here, but I've never fought as Salamanders before, so I really like to roll dice for the, and I don't mean that like, I just want to roll dice. No, I mean like it helps me internalize what units do to roll the dice for them. So I charge with the Ancients in the flank, the Rhinosaurs in the flank, and the Rhinosaurs in the front. And at least this overcommit is something I need to happen. I cannot have these half-breeds here anymore. So I probably should have left the Ancients like this, facing forward, and just taken both the Rhinosaurs in, but this is what I do instead. My Battle Captain just moves to chap up the other half-breeds. The distance between the Battle Captain and my unit of Rhinosaurs here is more than 6 inches. So they can't overrun into me unless I Rubber Lance and bounce an inch back. Then he'll need a 6 to get into me. So, just hedging my bets. Over here on the far left, we see my Corsairs. These ones getting a flank charge into that Failure of a Dragon. I've got Corsairs into the front of the dragon and Corsairs into Bardoom. So I don't expect much there, but still, anything is a gift, and that's a lot of attacks with Elite and Crush, so it could happen. My Firebrand stays within 6 inches of all of them, but also within 12 inches of these half-breeds, just to lay into him with his pistols a little bit. Yeah, so with shooting, the Lucilodons do nothing because they're Lucilodons, so they do nothing. I do get the Bane Chant on this unit, so that's great, and I end up doing 5 wounds to the half-breeds with my pistol, so can't all be bad. And moving into combat, so we've got the combat here from Ghost Corsairs. I end up doing like 4 or 5 wounds to Bardoom, which is pretty amazing. Very unexpected, but thankfully for my opponent, I don't get a waiver or even better, a break. Over here with the dragon, I end up doing 7 wounds to him, and that might sound like a lot, but these guys in the flank, that's 20 attacks on 5s with a lead, and then 4s to wound, and then 10 on 4s and 4s with a lead and 4s to wound. So 7 wounds isn't all that unlikely. Thankfully, I don't get the waiver or the break, so I don't get that 11 or 12. But still, 7 wounds, good stuff. And in the middle, we'll talk about that in a second. So let's talk about this combat. So I get in here, I've got the Bane Chant. The Ancients only have 12 attacks, but they hit on 3s. It'll be 3s and 3s with Vicious, and then 4s and 3s with Vicious with the Tyrants. I do pretty well. I end up doing 14 wounds, but unfortunately I double won it. So, you know, it looks like there's only 10 wounds, but there's just another die down here that says 4. So I do 14 wounds, get the double one, and, you know, I can feel the downvotes coming as I'm going to talk about double ones for a second here. A lot of people think that when I say double ones needs to be changed, they hear that, because I do say things in a hyperbolic manner, which is like double ones is the worst rule in the game, because I honestly do think it's the worst rule in the game, like the worst printed rule. And it's not because I think that double one should be gone, or that I don't like randomness in my games. What I don't like about double ones is that it's too much. It robs too much agency from the player, right? Because it's not the opposite of boxcars. Boxcars, if I roll boxcars against you, I'm the aggressor, you're the victim. The victim gets the next turn, so you get a full turn to adjust your plans around that boxcar. Now a double one, I'm the victim, you're the aggressor. You, as the aggressor, get the full turn to deal with it. So it's already better than boxcars, period. The other problem with it is that you get to act with the unit, which is the only part about the rule I really, really, really want to see changed, which is I double won this unit, but now not only am I, it's not a zero sum, it's a negative sum, because I didn't gain a +1 for killing the unit, right? But not only do I not get a +1, I'm not at a 0, because I also lose at least a unit, because the unit I just fought fights me back, right? So it's just, it's a poor bit of design, and it needs a slight adjustment, which in this case, I believe means that the unit cannot fight, shoot, it cannot act. Its gift, like the gift of that 1 in 36 chance, is that it gets to live, right? And I have to spend at least another turn killing it. So yeah, I roll a double one here. It's unfortunate, especially as I'm about to get double flanked. But yeah, the only part I don't like about double ones is that you're still allowed to act. Moving forward, and feel free to downvote me. I don't really care. So anyway, going on to the middle. I don't double one that combat, so thankfully I got rid of those half-breeds. I turn to face my units, and this one works pretty well. I turn these guys forward. I turn these guys to deal with the half-breeds after they kill my battle captain, and these ones just to deal with the center, right? I do roll this combat first, which I think was correct, because I needed to see what happened here to inform how I'm going to reform in the center, right? So I reform these guys to deal with anything. I think I probably should have reformed them a bit more like this, and just bet that one unit of rhinosaurs could kill one unit of wounded half-breeds. Although they do have regen, they could, you know, not be wounded, I guess. But yeah, I probably should have reformed a little bit, being a little overly cautious here with an army that can't really afford it. And I don't mean like they can't afford to be, I mean that I don't have enough units to be overly cautious. On the left, so yeah, again, I did 7 wounds, I didn't waver anything, but still, that's pretty solid, and that is a good end of turn 2, except for that double one. Turn 3. So turn 3, my opponent got a terrible turn 2, and then I returned with an okay turn 2, but I'm about to lose my entire center, or at least 2/3 of my center. So yeah, unless he double ones, that could happen. So on the top right, we see the double flank go off, so he's got both the Immortal Guard getting the flank here. In the front of my Ancients are the Doggos, and in the front of my Tyrants is the double one unit, so the 14 wound unit. And the other charges he's got going on, obviously he charges my Battle Captain, and then in the middle he has his Dogs and Immortal Guard double charge into my Ancients. I'm not too afraid of that, as I think Immortal Guard have 12 attacks on 3, it would be 12 attacks on 3s and 5s with Vicious, and then like 10 attacks with the Dogs, 9 attacks on 4s and 5s with Vicious. So I'm not super worried about that. I'm a dash 19, so whatever. And I have Rhinosaurs ready to rock back here to end anything. On the left-hand side, you can see Bardoom going into the 1 wound Corsairs, the guys that flank charge that dragon, while the dragon charges, counter-charges back to the unit right in front of him, and lastly, the Dogs charge into the Corsairs that were trying to dodge them before, or trying to dodge them before. So, yep, that's all the charges, with my opponent shooting This rocket fires into these rhinosaurs and ends up doing 2 wounds to them. This rocket fires at my Lachilodon and unfortunately hits it again, wounds it, and wavers it. So, not my best. I still have a Lachilodon right there, but the back one has now wavered. And then his heal, he has heal 9 with his 6+3, and he nails 8 of them. So yeah, the double one unit is also now only on 6 wounds. So yeah, unfortunate, but happens. Moving forward, yeah, so we're fighting again. We can see if these Dumbos can solve it. Maybe the dogs will show them how it's done. And yep, better shot of that combat and these combats. So before we move forward, let's talk about these combats. So my opponent smartly goes for the Inspire first and rolls this out. So these flankers and these dogs, they don't do too well, but I already have 7 wounds on me, so he doesn't need to do too well, and he easily kills them off. And then my opponent rolls the Tyrants. So when he rolls into these, I'm keeping track of the wounds on some dice down here, just because I'm not going to put wounds next to units that I think will die. So keeping track of dice, my opponent rolls the flanking unit first and does terribly. But then the front unit gets me just barely to that double one. So I end up taking 10 wounds total. But not I think 4 of them were from the front unit. And my opponent rolls a 3, meaning that if he hadn't been able to countercharge me here, I would have been alive and able to actually make something of this flank still. So again, that's a bit of heuristic data. It's just one data point, but I'm just trying to emphasize the point, right? Which is the fact that he could then countercharge me is why I died. So anyway, both these units go down. Over here, the battle captain, yeah, he doesn't stand a chance, gets destroyed by these half-breeds, and I think my opponent rolls pretty nuts here, but it doesn't really matter. Blows right through them, sees that he doesn't have the overrun, and overruns anyway, just to get closer to me. So I'm fighting him farther away from the token, which is smart. And at the end of combat, this is what it looks like. Yeah, you can see the half-breeds have advanced forward. Over here, yeah, this dragon has finally killed one of the units of Corsairs, so good job him, little clap. But Bardoom on oh shit, what did we do? Okay, Bardoom on the other hand has done his Bardoom special and done 2 wounds to the Corsairs, so good job Bardoom. You've had 16 attacks so far, you've done 4 wounds. The dogs, they do a couple wounds, but they actually fail the kill as well, so only 1 Corsair unit down. I'm feeling pretty good about that. This flank is still, this left flank isn't great, and this right flank is definitely not great, but I think I can salvage it. I can do something with it. And we move on to Salamander's turn 3. So Salamander's turn 3, I get my my charges going, and actually if we roll a picture back, so I've got these 2 units of Rhinosaurs, right? And they can do quite a few things, but I decide in the end that I want to see the combat, but I think that these Rhinosaurs in particular should have just turned like this and moved 7 towards this objective, because these dogs I can just deal with the Clan Lord. He might not kill them, but he's not afraid of them, at least. Or I could have joined in fighting with these Ancients against these Immortals, right? I probably would have gone into the dogs, but I still could have done it. But instead, I decide to send the Rhinosaurs in, and I do get, so I get Ancients here, Rhinosaurs here, and then Rhinosaurs here for charges. This little Lachilodon here just walks out of the woods a little bit. He's leaving his little point ready for being burnt, but yeah, he doesn't have high enough unit strength, and I don't want to sacrifice him that way. I want to protect this flank a little bit better, and I need him to be able to shoot at this unit with only 6 wounds on it because of the heal. So yeah, and Lachilodons don't have Nimble, so they've got to do this. The other Lachilodon is wayward, so he just wanders off, and I've got the Fireball and 1 shot to deal with these guys. Thankfully, I do end up doing it. The Lachilodon does nothing, so this guy's Fireball does pretty well though, and gets this unit up to a decent number of wounds, and then I roll really well for my break. break check because I don't do too well with the fireball. I think I only do two or three wounds, but just roll the break check real well. You know, skill. So that's that. We move on to the combats. So let's. Oops, I don't know why I jumped forward. So in this combat, my ancients do. They do okay. They do like 6 or 7 wounds, maybe 5, to the immortals, and that's not too bad as I only have 12 attacks on 3s and 4s with vicious. So, yep, I'll take it. We'll talk. Yeah, we'll talk about those. We get over here where my what is this? The fire guy? Firebrand? I want to say Firebrand and my Ghost Corsairs. They could have charged, the Corsairs could have charged into Bardoom as a countercharge, but I decide that instead I want to deal with this stupid dragon, and I send the Corsair or the Firebrand and the Corsairs there, and I send some Corsairs into the dogs. Now, in terms of combat, I do kill off these dogs, and I roll this combat first, which was a big mistake. Granted, Bardoom is extremely inspiring, so he inspires within 12 inches, but I should have still rolled the inspiring first because it informed how I was going to deal with this unit's reform. So the smart thing would have been to go forward d6 as there's an objective right over here, right? But I decided, well, I'm probably not going to kill that dragon in this round of combat, so I can reform like this and threaten him, right? That way I'm threatening him from both sides. But I kill off the dogs, I reform them like this, right? And at the end of the day, I do end up killing off the stupid dragon. So yeah, just it's order of operations. It's a problem that I messed up on. So moving forward, yeah, I do 9 wounds to these dogs with my Rhinosaurs, and I double 1 it. So again, the double 1 here. And again, the problem with it isn't that the unit isn't dead. The problem with it is that the unit can act, right? Because I have 10 wounds on me, meaning that this unit can do some serious damage, and he can now combo charge with these Immortal Guard back here into my Rhinosaurs, because where he at least wavered, he is in the way, right? He stops that charge, but he's not, because that's how double 1s work. But, you know, it happens, double 1s, not as bad as the last game, I guess. And yeah, so this shows off what the end of turn 3 looks like for the Salamanders. You can see I ended up killing off these Immortal Guard. As I said, I killed off the dragon, which was great, and I killed off the dogs over here. So some pretty solid moves, although I am, again, still on the back foot, as this right flank is just coming in to crush all my dudes. And I double 1'd again, meaning that I haven't also secured the center, which is something I really needed to do this turn, so that both the dogs would be gone, and I'd have Rhinosaurs threatening this way. I do have Rhinosaurs threatening that way down here, but these Rhinosaurs, had this combat not happened, wouldn't need to do this, because I want them to go that way to grab objectives, but they couldn't because of that double 1. So moving on to turn 4. Turn 4 for the Abyssal Dwarves. You can see these Immortal Guard down here in the lower right, they could have burnt this objective by just walking over there, as I only have 1 unit strength there. But my opponent decides he doesn't need to do that, and he needs to get 2, because it's looking like I'm going to take the center. So he just waddles over to the objective that's a little over here. It's a little out of his reach. But these dogs go in, and right now my Lakildon is just within 3. So I am contesting it, right? But if he kills it off with his flank charge, he can just kill me, reform, and burn it. So yeah, we'll see. The Immortal Guard here go into the front of my Ancients, and I'm not super worried about that, as I've got 9 wounds on me, right? But he only has 12 attacks with 3s and 5s, so what is that, like 9 hits, 3 wounds, 4 wounds-ish, right? So that puts me on a 13, and I'm a dash 19 because of this guy. So he'll need, on that average, 6 twice, which I'll take. It's not great, but it's not that bad. The dogs, because they can, countercharge into my Ancients on Rhinosaurs, and this brings us into another thing I'd like to see changed in Kings of War, and it's not a big thing. It's just that when you have non-explicit language, it creates a problem because of how keywording works in this game, right? So, for example, the dogs here have Crushing 1 versus Cavalry, right? And these rhinosaurs are large cavalry, meaning that they don't fulfill the basic need of they're not cav, right? So he doesn't get crushing 1. And it's like, okay, that's fine. But that's not true in every instance of the game. For example, the Succubus Temptress, right? She inspires Succubi. Now there's a unit called Succubi, and then there's a unit called, what's the new one? Succubi Lurkers, I think? Something like that. The new unit that came out in Clash 19, right? So she inspires both of them, right? But one of the units is actually called Succubi, so should she just inspire them? And this is one of those things where it's like, yeah, just clean up your usage of keywords, right? Simple. Or like ancients, right? All ancients gained vicious in this, right? Well, these are ancients on rhinosaurs. Do they have vicious? No, but should they? I don't know. Like, I'm not sure how to read that rule because it's interpreted in different ways and there's different, different standard set. So just a small change there. We played it without the crushing 1, in case you're wondering. But still, a bit of a worry there, as I already have 10 wounds on me. I'm a dash 20, but every wound is every break check is a problem for that unit. And showing off the combat, so that one. And we've got Bardoom going into the Corsairs. This time they've got 5 wounds. So, you know what? I trust him. Even though the only thing he's doing well is regenning. So right now he's at 2. He actually hasn't rolled the regen yet. And he's down to 1. So I've done, I think, 5 wounds to him. He's regen 4, and he's done 4 wounds. So I guess it's like life leech. And here is the end of the turn for the Abyssal Dwarves. You can see the doggos only do 1 wound, and thankfully don't roll that 9 twice. They actually do roll it the first time to kill me off. But these guys rolled their, I think he actually did get them with 4 wounds and rolled the 6 twice. So not that unlikely, but it's not super great for me. The dogs here, thankfully, on the flank charge onto my MacLeod only do 1 wound and do not waver it. So that's great, you know. And this is really this game. My opponent, in case you're wondering, like, oh, you know, you're rolling double 1s back to back. What I'm also not showing you is that my opponent's rolling terribly. Like, you know, sure, he got the 8 out of 9 heal, but then he charged me in the flank. Like, this is just a shit show. So it's a funny one though. And anyway, so my MacLeod's still up, and then off on the left. You know, what do you think? What do you think Bardoom did? Oh no, I'm sorry. That 5 was because I had 3 wounds on me, and he did 2 wounds because that's his superpower. He does 2 out of 8 wounds. Perfect. Good job, guy. So now he's at what, 6 out of 24? Average. Moving on to turn 4 for the Salamanders, and here is a problem because again. These guys really need to turn and grab this objective. But in my head and my opponent, we both thought it was turn 5. I even have a die out showing what turn it is, and we're both like, oh yeah, it's turn 5. So, yeah, huge mistake. But I decide to corkscrew charge here because these, if we walk back a picture, these guys are 50 mil. The difference between their width and depth is 50 millimeter. Meaning that if you half that because they spin on their center, it's 25 millimeters, and that's 0.98 inches, meaning that I can just fit through these dogs and corkscrew here because I can already see them. So I corkscrew there, and then I charge the dogs with the other one. This was a mistake, but it was a mistake even if I thought it was turn 5 because the Clan Lord should have been able to do this, but honestly I kind of forgot about the Clan Lord as anything but a buff stick. So yeah. I move my Mage Priest over here to just be out of line of sight of the dog so we can fireball them. Unfortunately, again, this stupid MacLeod is wavered, so it's doing nothing. So, need to kill off these dogs so they don't burn this token, because I'm going to lose the token over here for sure. And I take over here, the Corsairs up here in the north here, we're actually, again, facing this way, right? And I could have charged Bardoom. But I thought it was turn 5, meaning that I need to go grab that token right now or I'm never going to be able to get there unless there's a turn 7. So I definitely should have gone into the rear, and not that that is relevant because he's an individual, but I needed the 10 more attacks, I think, to assure a kill, or not assure, but make it more likely. I love his thumbtack hat, by the way. That's great. But anyway, so showing off that combat. This one, the MacLeod that got flanked himself then flanks these guys, So yeah, I never know, because Abyssal Guard are pretty difficult to take down once with the Rhinosaurs now that they've lost their Thunderous, so they're only on 3s and 3s and they don't have Vicious. So I thought, maybe 10 more attacks on 5s and 4s, that could definitely swing it. But unfortunately, at the end of combat, it doesn't. So these guys kill off their dogs. That's great. And I decide to reform facing this way because I want to kill more dwarves. And the 11 wound Rhinosaurs failed to kill off this unit of Abyssal Guard, so that's probably a good game for them. My Fireball, again, does pretty poorly, and unfortunately I don't save it this time with a good nerve check, and I only do 3. I don't even waver the dog, so he's going to grab his second objective. And over there on the left, I waver Bardoom, but he has Fury, so he can just countercharge me. And here I actually I don't forfeit the game, but I say, well, that's pretty much it. And that means, like, I think I'm gonna lose. Not I'm packing up my miniatures. Like, I'll keep playing, right? And we move on to turn 5, but I didn't take any more pictures, so unfortunately I don't have any more. So my opponent takes his turn 5, and we think this is turn 6, by the way. So takes his turn 5. He burns the objective over here. He burns the objective here, right? And then we roll out some combats, which are kind of funny. He charges me with Bardoom because I needed to see if Bardoom would kill a unit of Corsairs. I needed to see it. And he doesn't, by the way. He does 2 more wounds and fails. So Bardoom, a perfect record of doing 2 wounds every round. Perfect guy. But unfortunately, this mortar hits with rocket hits with all 3 of its attacks on my Corsair and blows it off the table. So I don't have anything that can grab these objectives quickly or within what I thought was 1 turn. So I lose that. With shooting, I think my opponent charges into the Wakilodon and then decides to shoot down my Rhinosaurs. But he rolls pretty poorly, if I remember correctly. Doesn't kill the Wakilodon, does kill the Rhinosaurs, so they're gone. And unfortunately, that means that I'm sitting here. My opponent is on 2 objectives. I definitely have the center objective, and I can take it, right? But I do need to go fight. I need to kill off this unit. I need to kill this unit, right, to assure this. And I definitely need to kill this, but that's a job for Wakilodon and Fireball, right? So I now have a Clan Lord. This unit has quite a few wounds on it. It looks like it has 10 wounds on it, and I needed a 6 due to my Brutal. I failed it, obviously. I rolled a 5. So yeah, I can kill them off though because he didn't heal, right? So my Clan Lord, let's say my Clan Lord kills this, and these guys kill this fresh unit of Immortal Guard, right? The Wakilodon was still up, but I think he was wavered, and let's say that I kill off the dogs with these 2, right? So my opponent is down to a unit over here that's kind of stranded because there are no objectives anymore, and my units are faster and hidden behind woods, these dwarves, and in this fantasy world I've killed these 2, right? So he has no more unit strength. He has these dogs over here, but they're not doing anything. No, those are dead. Sorry, those dogs are dead. So he has no unit strength over here. He just has mortars and fireballs. So I can take this objective. I can take this, but I'd have to make my Wakilodon not die. So that's not die next turn. And then run over here and grab the objective. And I lost the Corsairs here, and these Corsairs can't get there because, again, I think it's turn 6. So I start my turn and go, well, what I'm going to do here is, before I roll a million dice, because it was already 2 in the morning, I'm just going to roll to see if there's a turn 7, because I physically can't get enough objectives, because this Wakilodon is not within 6 inches of this, or within 9 inches of that. So I can't get enough objectives unless there's a turn 7, because he has 2 points right now, and I can have 1. So we rolled up, I don't get a turn 7, and I forfeit. So that ends up being the end of the game. It's a victory for the Abyssal Dwarfs, and I think that it just sort of, it wasn't that bad. It was more, there was some bad dice, but my opponent was not rolling well. It was bad dice all around. And I think it just speaks to I'm not a big proponent of tiers and armies, but there definitely is something to be said about just having a better army roll and being pointed more appropriately or more efficiently, like Abyssal Dwarves are compared to Salamanders. So at the end of the day, I think that was the bigger determinant, that in my relative inexperience with Salamanders. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the battle, and I'll see you next time. Bye.